Today, workshop number 6, Recycling and Sustainable Products. My name is Nick Sanzone. I'm the Environmental Programs Coordinator for the City of Satellite Beach. Thank you all for coming and welcome to our 6th workshop as part of our year-long workshop series of sustainable workshops as part of our Sustainability Action Plan. As part of the plan to help educate the public about a variety of environmental topics and sustainable topics, we created these workshops, and we are on our 6th one, and this is the best crowd yet. So thank you all for coming out tonight. The weather wasn't too bad, and I'm glad to see you all here. And we'll get started with a little overview of what we're going to talk about today. So this recycling workshop talks a little bit about recycling first and then sustainable products at the end, and we'll tie it all together. So the practice of recycling, what is it? What does it mean? How is the city involved? What kind of initiatives do we have? What sustainable products are there available to you as the community? And some information provided by Waste Management. Waste Management regrets that they weren't able to attend and present their portion of the presentation, but they did provide us with some slides that we could share with you, as well as some informational material directly from Waste Management that includes everything from a kids coloring book to a list of, these are really great, these are the often recycle right helpers. This will really help you with deciding what to recycle. So make sure you grab one of those on your way out. There is an example of the sticker that you can request from Waste Management that you could put on your recycling bin. If it is faded off, you can always get a replacement. So without further ado, reduce, reuse, recycle. We all know those words, right? We've heard them for years. They've been part of our conversation about recycling. Today, I'm going to add a few extras. I did borrow one from Rodney Smith, who looks like he stepped out for a minute. Respect. Respect is very important. It kind of helps this process along. If you respect yourself, you respect the planet, you respect the processes and the way that things work, you understand them, you give them the time and energy to understand them, that helps you do these things a lot better. If you rethink, you can rethink before you act, because sometimes we think without acting. That's just part of human nature, it seems. To refuse is a very powerful thing, and to refuse a styrofoam to-go container, to refuse to, be part of the problem by being part of the solution, by bringing your own silverware, by bringing your own metal straw. Those kinds of things are part of the rethink aspect of this. So we're going to add some more re's, and at the end of the program, if anybody has any new ones they want to add, we can add them to the next workshop. So what is the city doing? Well, we're looking at eco-friendly products. We're looking at different organizations like KBB, Surfrider, MRC that have these programs that are for restaurants, ocean-friendly restaurants, and different initiatives like that, and we want to support those in our community. We also looked at eco-friendly products themselves, eco-products, and we'll talk a little bit more about those as we get into the sustainable products portion of the presentation. We also are looking at replacing harmful single-use plastics such as straws, and I'm happy to say that we recently just passed a motion through council at the last city council meeting that we are officially in support of any business that uses non-plastic, non-single-use plastic straws. So paper straws, metal straws, even pasta straws, anything that is environmentally friendly and not single-use. Those are the kinds of things that we want to support. We also included stir sticks as a thing that we would like to see businesses do away with. We are not saying that we are placing a ban on any of these things. We're just saying, look, the city promotes businesses that do good things. And by refusing to be out there just throwing out plastic straws to everybody who walks in the restaurant, that's really big. Long Doggers is out there. They have a plastic straw policy where you have to ask, and they even have paper straws available. Papagallo's has paper straws available. And we're also looking to phase out single-use plastics from our events. So we did pass a styrofoam ordinance where anybody that is a vendor at an event in the city of Satellite Beach is no longer allowed to use styrofoam at an event if it's a Satellite Beach sponsored event, which is great. Very hard to do. I've had to help with some of the policing of those things to help people kind of get on track, and giving them the options of what is an alternative is part of the solution. Another thing that we're doing is, you may have noticed there are new recycling bins at a few locations in the city. Sunrise has one, Pelican Park has one, and is that Grant? Grant has the other one? Shell Street. And so you'll find these containers there, and please, if you are at the beach at any of these locations with these recycling containers that are available for the public to use as beachgoers, be careful on what you recycle in them. And I'll be going into that a little bit, but the idea is that if you go to the beach and you pick up trash as part of a trash bash or a litter quitter program, or you're just out there doing good deeds and picking up trash, a lot of that you pick up isn't actually recyclable because it's been contaminated through the environmental process. And if there's barnacles growing on it, or if there's too much sand on it, or if there's liquid inside of it, those types of things are, well, we don't want to recycle things that are dirty because they're going to contaminate the process. And the same goes at home. There's also the Satellite Beach Recreation Department, which I got to tip my hat and give a good shout out to them because they have the available to pick up or drop off. You can drop off your goods there that are recyclable, and there's a new list, and it's available on the website of cosmetic products that you're actually allowed to bring there, which is different than what you're allowed to do in different areas. Unfortunately, there's no battery drop-off. They don't have that. You have to actually go to a different location. I think there's one or two in Brevard. There are businesses that do that kind of thing. But unfortunately, the city doesn't have a battery recycling program at the rec center. And the only place that does recycle batteries has to be rechargeable batteries. So the main message that I'll kind of use now to guide us through the talk is that we don't want to be, as Waste Management told me when I went to their workshop recently, we don't want to be wish cyclers. We're not wish cycling. Because it's very easy to fall into the habit of, oh, I think this could be recycled, this should be recycled, it probably can be, so I'm going to hopefully put it in my can with the good intent that I'm going to recycle, even though I don't know. And if you don't know, it's best don't put it in there. Only recycle what you know is recyclable. And there's a very specific list, and we'll go over that. So this is the facility behind this lovely quote that one of my interns, Megan, found on the internet, and I just liked it so much I wanted to put her name at the bottom, but I figure I'll just read it to you. Without exception, recycling is the top action that a society can do to simultaneously improve the environment and the economy and sustainable manufacturing. So some of the products that we use that are plastic products, they can be reused. That plastic can be reused if it's recycled. Now, in this picture, there's a lot of things on those conveyor belts, and I wish that I could tell you that everything in this image is going to be recycled. However, a rough estimate is that approximately anywhere between 25 and 30% of the material that ends up in our single stream facility does not actually get recycled. Unfortunately, that's the case. Now, if it's a bottle cap, for example, on your water bottle. Now, if it was just the cap, this cannot go into the single stream facility. It has to be attached to a bottle, and the bottle should not have liquid in it. It should be clean, and it should not have liquid in it. Now, the bottle can be recycled without the cap, but the cap can't be recycled without the bottle. It's best just to keep those two things together. So, recycling facts. Some basic facts, kind of global and US facts all combined. The US recycling levels are currently at 21% in less than 15 years. So, if worldwide waste is suspected to double, we would need to quadruple our efforts to have the impact that we would want to have on the plastic community to reduce it. Now, when recycling in the US levels reach 75%, it'll be the environmental and CO2 equivalent of removing 55 million cars from the road. So recycling really does have an impact. I mean, there's a lot of ways to help the environment. This is one that you can do daily. Now, despite only representing 5% of the population, the US does generate more waste than any other country in the world. That gives us more of an opportunity to reduce our impact. There's the silver lining. So recycling is cool. You can share it with your friends. You can challenge each other to do it. Our intern, Zach Eichels, has created a nice program where we're going to compete within the city departments to see who can reduce their environmental impact the most. They don't have a competition with each other. They have a competition with themselves to see how much can we change our habits. Can we change our lighting? Can we change how much we reduce, reuse, and recycle? So this is an image of many, many bottles stacked very, very high, all crushed and compacted. And it gives us a small window into the environment's problem, the environment's enemy, which is plastic. Now, there's a lot of different things you can recycle: glass, plastic, aluminum, paper. Those are the four, right? But we're going to focus on plastic because that's the one that kind of gets a little bit confusing. We know we can recycle paper as long as it's clean and dry and not greasy. That's for pizza boxes. Everybody that gets their pizza, the top sometimes smushes on the pizza and it gets greasy. They don't want that. They don't want that. So rip that part off. Don't put that in recycling. They want the clean cardboard, stacked. And if you get too much cardboard and you're moving, you can actually call and they can come pick that up specifically. Paper from your office can be taken. However, we'll talk in a little bit about some of the things going on in the rest of the world, and it's changing on what's being taken where. Now, plastic itself, created, kind of recently in the grand scheme of things, 1869, a man named John Wesley. He really just wanted to win a $10,000 prize to see who could create a substitute for ivory. But that snowballed and led us into this world that we live in today, where even the chairs you're sitting in are made out of plastic. Now, the demand exploded during World War II, and it's continued. Now, the 1980s started with some recycling as a way to reduce plastic, but it's not enough. We're just learning on how to do this. And even now today, there's still a lot of problems with what do I recycle. So there will be a question and answer portion where we can kind of field some questions that you all have, because there's no way that I could get everything in this presentation. But the one thing that I want to kind of get you to think about today is, why is plastic the environment's enemy? Because there's two ways that things break down in the environment predominantly. They either biodegrade, which means organic substances decompose, microorganisms, bacteria. They eat things and they break them down in their component parts, and they produce off gases and carbon and other things of that nature. That's like compostings and worms and that type of thing. In the environment, naturally leaves turn into soil and that kind of thing. But all plant-based and animal-based natural minerals will biodegrade. Plastics do not fall into that category. Plastics will photodegrade. Now, they are working on some bacteria, and if you're really smart, and to everybody out there on the internet and those of you here, if you can come up with a microorganism that can eat plastics, and I hear they're working on things like that. There's some really bright young people in the future of the world that are taking this by the horn, so to speak, and changing the photodegradation category into a biodegradation option for plastics. That's amazing. But currently, most plastics are photodegrading. And photodegrade simply means that as light from the sun hits them, they break apart. They break apart into smaller and smaller pieces. They photodegrade. And as they degrade, they become smaller and smaller and smaller. And that brings us to what happens. Well, they become microplastics. They can even become smaller and smaller than that. While they're breaking down in the process, there's this one stage where they're just the right size, and they're called nodules. And those microplastics are floating in the environment, they're floating in the ocean, and they're taking on a similar role as algae would, and they're being eaten by plankton. These tiny particles pass through water filtration systems, and they end up in the oceans and the river. And the potential threat to aquatic life is seen as these microplastics. Now, they're very pretty with lots of different colors, which looks a lot like the coral reef system. So if you're an organism that's been alive for millions of years and you've learned to adapt and change and evolve, you aren't used to coming in contact with these types of materials. So the sea turtle may think that the plastic bag is a jellyfish. The bird is trying to eat something that it thinks is food or gets stuck in it. It was an unknown. And sometimes when you don't know what something is, you miscategorize it. Animals are not dumb, they're curious and they're adventurous and they're brave. And sometimes there's a consequence which comes with that. And in this case, 180 species consume plastic, from tiny plankton to giant whales. So if all these little plankton are eating all these little plastics, because all the little plastic pieces take on the characteristics of the things that are around them, because much like a clay substance, they have very dense pore space. So there's lots of pore space where all these different micro elements can get in there, and they actually can take on the appeal of the things that are around them. So they can look like food and smell like food to other organisms. 12.7 million tons of plastic enter the oceans each year, according to a recent fact. that was on the internet. And that number may change depending on who you ask and where you ask it, but the number's always going to be that high in that range. Now that porous plastic that I was talking about, those microplastics, that's that relationship. So if you can imagine them floating in the environment, they're going to float at the same place that seaweed's going to float. If you can imagine a sea turtle's young life as they're born and they swim out into the ocean, the first thing these little sea turtles do is they try to find a place that they can hide that's safe. That seaweed that we see on our beaches that washes up, that sargassum, it floats out there. They find these sargassum patches and they hide under it and they eat it, and that's their habitat. But when there's plastic involved, that plastic takes on the same form of that environment, and the sea turtles are eating the wrong thing because it can look like food. The estimated life of plastics, just for a few items, anywhere between 400 to 1,000 years, 10 to 100 years for plastic grocery bags, or up to 1,000 years. And this is just to photodegrade. This isn't to biodegrade. This is the way the plastics are breaking down. So this is kind of what that Pacific garbage patch looks like. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's even bigger than you can imagine, larger than France, Spain, and Germany combined. Some people say it's twice the size of Texas, with 87,000 tons. In just the North Pacific gyre alone, there are multiple gyres because of ocean currents and the way that ocean currents work. They move plastic, again, because of the way that they float, their specific gravity. It's very similar to the floating vegetation, and most of it can be found in the massive garbage patches in the ocean, which look a lot like this. There's the big one, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch between North America and Asia. There's a few others in the southern hemisphere, and the other one off the coast of Florida itself in the Atlantic Ocean. So they're accumulating these massive areas. We want to reduce that by our actions because reduce, reuse, recycle. One of the interesting facts here is that there's 6 times more plastic than plankton. Again, that goes into what I was saying. There's the one sad photo that I had to show, and I'll get past it real quick. To the happy photo of the future, the idea of reduce, reuse, recycle. What we do at home affects the world, and sometimes what we can do out in the world gives us hope for what we can do at home. So this is the idea that you can collect that plastic out in the ocean. So what are other countries doing for recycling or waste management? Well, Sweden burns their garbage as fuel, which is a pretty useful practice, as long as they scrub it and make sure that it's clean, which there's probably some issues with that too. There's issues with most things. But they are running out of trash because of this process. Switzerland, on the other hand, charges for their garbage, which reduces the impact because people don't want to pay money. So there's a couple of different ways of going about it there. Now, Switzerland has also introduced a landfilling ban demanding that all non-recycled combustible waste is incinerated. So it's kind of part of that same process where they're going to ship it off. Now, China is the one that is really in the news right now when it comes to recycling. That's where most of our recycling waste goes. So since 1992, 45% of the world's plastic refuse has gone to China. So when it comes to our facilities and it's sorted, that first image I showed of the recycling plant, the reason they're in business, because it is a business, is that they can sell that product. So think about it when you're recycling, that the item that you're going to put in the can is something that's going to be turned into another item via this system. So it has to be valued at something. If there's no value, it's not going to be recycled. Now, because of this 45% of world plastic use since '92 going there in recent years, especially since January 1st, China has banned some forms of scrap material, specifically some paper, and they're not taking it anymore. So again, any entrepreneurs out there that want to recycle and make money and create a new facility, we could really use your help. Kenya, on the other hand, has instituted a complete ban for plastic bags. Something that we've wanted to do here, but it's hard to do because of legislature. So we're trying to educate first. So educating usually helps a lot. Because you don't want to end up in this situation where you're getting $40,000 fines for using a plastic bag. It's better to educate. And find alternatives. So we do have some other bags that we promote, that we've worked with Surfrider to create, that are reusable or biodegradable. For Brevard County specifically, if you have questions, don't be afraid to call or visit their website, brevardcounty.gov. /solid waste /home. Each facility has a different job. The transfer station, of course, transfers material. The landfill station is for the material that can't be recycled, and the single use is for single use, and mulching is for mulching. The single use is the one that takes your recycling materials in your yellow topped bins. Now it's a single stream system, which means that the items do not need to be sorted, which is, if you remember when there used to be the 3 different bins, and then they changed that, they wanted to get more people to recycle. However, they did find that because it was a single bin, they were getting a lot more of non-recyclable materials because people weren't being as careful. So I don't know what the future will hold. I personally didn't mind the bins, the little single bins, because it made it very specific. You couldn't cheat. Now there's a lot of people putting a lot of things in there, which if you do contaminate your bin and your bin is picked up by your local truck, you will then contaminate that entire truck. So it's very important to be cautious as to what you recycle. Make sure that it's clean, make sure it's correct, and when in doubt, throw it out. That's what waste management says. So that same facility, as seen here, these are the waste management slides. You know, convenience and the shape, because it has to pass through these identification laser beams. So, you know, they got their laser pointers, and they're figuring, well, how dense is that object? What is that object? Sort it over into this pile. What's that object? Is it glass? Is it paper? Is it plastic? Is it metal? Put it into this pile. And there's conveyor belts going every direction, making sure that all these things are getting to where they need to go. But if they're too light, they're not going to take it. So that's why your bottle cap, it'll fall off the line. If you crush your can, which used to be a thing, it can fall off the line. Keep it whole, keep it the way it is, keep it clean, but put it all in the bin. Now, again, like I talked about, this is why it's happening, because it has a value. These things have to have value. So your Christmas lights don't have value once you use them, and they're gone. They cannot be recycled. They are now trash. Your rubber hose, that is no longer an item. You may be able to think of all kinds of cool ways that you could upcycle it, and that's great if you're handy and you can strip the copper wiring from your Christmas lights and rewire a Tesla coil to demonstrate electricity to your friends. That's fine. But they don't want it. They want to keep it really simple. So keep your plastic bags out of recycling. That is the #1 thing that they will tell you. Plastic bags do not belong in recycling. And you're going to say, well, wait, that's how I put my cans into my can bag and my plastics in my plastic, and then I take that out and I dump that in there. Isn't that okay? No. They will get jammed in the machines. And these hard-working individuals at Waste Management will spend up to 30 minutes to remove plastic bags that jam up the machine, which costs more time and more money, which reduces the efficiency and the economic value of the work that they're doing. So that's really important. Again, they interfere with the machinery. It's unbelievable. They do it 4, 5, 6 times a day. It's a process that they really wish they never had to do, but when those bags get stuck, that's a big problem. Now again, bulky items can do the same thing. So hoses, Christmas lights, things like that, they will also jam the machine. So keeping it simple is the most beneficial thing you can do right now for recycling. Unless you want to do it at home, there's all kinds of cool home recycling that you can do where you can chop up your own plastic and melt it down with a 3D printer and use it to make things. The future is amazing, but waste management's single stream process is different. It's meant for a large portion of the population. Liquid and food, again, can contaminate. So you don't want that in there, so you have a pasta jar and it's got some pasta sauce in it, and it cracks open and it spills on the clean pizza boxes that your neighbor put in there. Now those are contaminated. So that's the kind of thing that you want to make sure that everything doesn't have to be spick and span clean like you're going to eat off it, but just enough so that you can put it in there and it's not going to contaminate anything. Oops. So these are the guys removing the plastic bags. They got to jump in the machine, into this conveyor belt, and rip out plastic bags. So visually, it's really kind of a strong message to see the men actually in there doing that work. It's really unfortunate.
Nicholas, is that on that paper that's on the recycle bins? Does it say no plastic bags?
Let's see. No, it doesn't say what not to do. It only says what to put in. So if it's not on this list, don't put it in there. It's a very simple way to do that. Now, the Dirty Dozen does include the list of things not to put in there. And then again, they include everything from open food to batteries to diapers to clothing, even propane tanks and garden hoses. There's a long list of things that you don't think that people would try to put in there, but a lot of people just try to get away with it. Now, if everybody keeps doing this type of bad behavior, I'm not saying that it's a definite, but there's the possibility that we might take a cue from other countries and cause a fine to happen, which I would hope not to see. I would just like to see people doing it right. So these are some of the recycle often because it's a responsible thing to do, but recycle right. So all these items on the top are good. All these items on the bottom are good. Your water bottles, tubs, or laundry containers, they're fine. Metal, cans, cat food, clean paper, mail, cardboard, Cheerio boxes, those types of things. These are the things that have the red hash line going through them. Your plastic bags, your little fruit containers, your paper cups, your plastic silverware, any food products or dirty paper or plastic or cardboard. So there's your no. So trash it. Better to trash it than to trash the whole truck. So don't be a wish cycler. That's the story there. So keep it back to basics. Rethink, reset, recycle. Plastic bottles and jugs, aluminum cans and steel. Stick to the basics. If we can get that right, we can show them that they are doing the right thing. We can show them that we're listening. And if they're making more money, they're happier and everything gets better and they increase their facilities and everything gets more effective. So the recycling dues, these are available. I will put this presentation up on the city website under the City of Satellite Beach Sustainability, and then you follow the links and you go down to workshops and this will be on there in detail. Also available on the Waste Management website, also available on City of Melbourne and other Brevard County cities websites as well. But the basic dues are the plastics that we talked about, the glass that we talked about, the aluminum. Now you will hear some things about glass. Do not include window glass, ceramic cups or dishes, light bulbs, mirrors, or broken glass. We're talking about glass jars with the lids removed, glass jars, lightly rinsed. Now, you're going to hear a lot about glass from other people, and you'll hear it here today, that it's not the most economically beneficial thing for waste management to recycle. There's not a lot of money in it. Sand is very abundant in some cases. They can be used in a lot of processes that you would use recycled glass in. They use it in some cases on like the dump to put on the road as traction, but it's not really economically viable. That's kind of a gimme that they're helping us with. They're saying, look, we're not really making a lot of money on this. It's kind of maybe worth doing economically, but we know that it's helping the environment and we know that it's helping you recycle. So here's an easy win, glass. It's kind of a nice thing that waste management's doing. Paper products, long list of them. If it's clean, you're probably good. Nothing with the wax on it though.
That would mean milk cartons.
You could put some milk cartons do work. I think.
Wax, they
Let's go back and.
I did check their website, they will take milk.
Yeah, it's something. Certain types of waxy, like the waxy cups, for example. No, but the milk cartons, yes.
And magazines are glossy, but they're still
Yeah. So there's a fine line. It's a very fine line, which is why it's so confusing, which is why we did the workshop. So the list of don'ts is just as big as the list of do's, unfortunately. Again, I wish I could recycle my old cassette tapes, but I'm just going to have to keep using them until they don't work anymore. The wet paper or cardboard, again, Christmas lights, paper cups, ceramic bowls, those types of things. Styrofoam is definitely a no. Now the aluminum coating inside of like goldfish crackers, that's a no. Although you're thinking, well, the paper on the outside is good. It's better not to contaminate the stream.
Is it possible to go back on silver?
Oh yeah, sure. So again,
But if it has the triangle on it, I have
so that's the,
containers that have the triangle on it.
do not trust the triangle. As much as we wish we could trust the triangle is, think of it as a kind of overarching standard for recycling, right? Whereas we have a very specific, select recycling. It'd be great if you could recycle everything that has the triangle, But with our particular facility that we currently have, you can't. So you have to look beyond the triangle. The triangle is a good start, and you could say, look, it has a triangle. It probably could be recycled. Let me see if it fits into my second tier of categories. Which brings us to sustainable products, because reduce, reuse, recycle is great, but the first R is reduce. Reduce. If you reduce your use, then you don't have to recycle. And you don't have to reuse because you've reduced it in the first place. But if you can't reduce it, reuse it. I always have a reusable cup. You can take it with you anywhere. It lasts longer than you, and you can pass it on to your kids after that, and it does a really good job of keeping your water cold. Now, some of these products that we're going to talk about may not be for everybody, but these are options and these are things that are going on that I thought were worth mentioning. So when we think about sustainable products, you want to think about where it comes from. There's lots of ways to be sustainable. What are the practices of that company? Do they make shoes, hats, clothing? Do they make soaps? Do they make honey? How is it sourced? How are animals treated? What's the conditions like? All those kinds of things has to do with sustainability. Now, how do they treat their workers and other issues? There's a lot of great websites out there. I could have thrown a bunch of them at you. This was one that I thought was kind of cool. On Your Life, eco-friendly products, nice list of different things. What was that? I heard somebody from outside corrected me. On Y'all was right. Thank you, person that is not in the workshop. That's great. Come on in and join us. So they provide lots of information. There's lots of great websites out there. Remake.world was really kind of cool. I kind of stumbled upon them in some of my research, and they talked about clothing and is sustainability fashionable, so sustainable products. So people like Patagonia, for example, were on their list. How they source their materials, how they treat their workers, what it is to be sustainable. Is the maker better off? Are the people better off? Who is the product made for? Did they make it with the future of the planet in mind? Do they donate? Those kinds of things. Is sustainability fashionable? Yeah, it is. Sustainable is very fashionable, especially now. The more educated the people are, the more concerned with the environment, the more obvious some of these growing challenges are, the more fashionable it is to do the right thing. And it's really something that anybody can do at any age. Pretty much at any age. I mean, if you got a toddler that recycles, it's really impressive. So if you're an adult that recycles, you might be the head of or look at starting a Fortune 500 company, and you might end up in Forbes as one of the 100 most sustainable companies. Here's the top 20 of the top 100, and I just thought it was kind of interesting that they have 3 times as many female top executives than the average multinational firm, generating over $1 billion. So these sustainable companies are very forward-thinking, very equal opportunity, which is very sustainable. And for some reason, they also pay more taxes, which I thought was kind of counterintuitive. You would think the people that are doing as much as they can to protect the future would get a break. But in this case, not so much. Companies like Nestle and Samsung are on there. Everywhere around the world, companies are trying to be sustainable because it's economically beneficial.
That's not Nestle, though.
That's Neste. That's different. That's Finland. It's oil and gas.
Oil and gas.
Sorry, no L. Not no L. But yeah, there's everything from pharmaceuticals to automobiles and electronics. So everybody has the opportunity to find some way to make a sustainable product in some shape or form. Even my favorite company growing up as a kid, Lego. Because you could build all kinds of things with Lego. And hopefully now, Lego wants to go green and they have a goal. And you could build a better tomorrow. Now, as a kid, I built a lot of things out of Legos. I built houses. And now there's a company, Ecodomum, which I'm probably pronouncing incorrectly, who are creating actual houses out of recycled plastics. So it's in Mexico. And they've currently built about 80 of these panels for each house. And they're pretty cheap for the size of them. It's amazing. They heat the plastic to the right degree. They put it into a form mold. They print it out. They put it together. Other products that you might find that are plastic alternatives include things that are made out of pineapple, like the shoe. Pineapple fiber can be turned into a leather-like substance, much like mushrooms can. This versatile natural textile is pretty much like leather. And when you look at the images, I mean, they say that the shape, the feel, the touch is pretty much the same. And it's, again, not harmful to the environment, much like this form of plastic, which is a biodegradable algae, a bioplastic, which they can make water bottles out of, which lasts, and then once the water is out of the bottle turns into, well, it decomposes as opposed to photodegrades, which is kind of cool. There's other things like bamboo for toothbrushes instead of plastic, really simple things that you can do at home to reduce your environmental impact by being supportive of sustainable products. One of the companies that creates a more sustainable, more eco-friendly cleaning product is Seventh Generation. They're on this list of thegoodtrade.com, along with a number of other companies that create similar products, like Burt's Bees, I think, is on there as well. Hand soaps, dish soaps, laundry detergents. These types of things end up in the environment, right? Because when we use them, they go down the drain. Where do they go after that? What do they take with them? A lot of them are using like citrus for cleaning instead of using chemicals. It's hard to figure out the best way to use some of these products. Sometimes the best thing to do is just to not use them and to find a substitute of maybe wearing your clothes an extra time if it's still clean, or washing it and then hanging out to dry instead of using your dryer, which saves energy. Or there's these really interesting things, which I'm not sure what they're made out of. I couldn't find it on the website, but they're wax. They're just straight wax, right?
They're beeswax with fabric. Have some friends.
Okay. Have you used them yet? I haven't used them.
I haven't used them because I don't use ceramic or anything. I just use
What'd you think?
Sandwich up, and you take them home when you're done, or you do what they've done there, and you just bring them home, wipe them down, and then
They're good to go?
again. And once they wear down, after about a years re-wax them. They've been using them
Really?
for centuries.
Wow.
You can make them. It's online.
You can even make them yourself.
Buy the fabric, buy the beeswax. You can make it yourself.
That's super cool. Very sustainable. Well, thank you for sharing. Very, very nice. So yeah, I mean, they look really cool. I mean, you could buy them or you can make them. So now this was really interesting. If anybody has any more information on this, please let me know. I came across this a couple of years ago, and I didn't really hear anything about it for a while. The company called Bakeys had a cultural kind of culinary revolution in India, and they made these series of edible spoons, and they were on TED Talks, and they had a Kickstarter, and it looked like it was going really, really well. I didn't hear about it for a while, and I've always wanted to kind of get a hold of them, but it seems that a lot of people didn't have a good results with the company, and they may or may not have gone belly up, but it doesn't seem like they should. They should still be in business, but a lot of people were saying that they put a lot of orders in and didn't get anything in return, and that the company kind of walked away with some of their Kickstarter money, which I hope isn't the case, because it's a really cool idea to make an edible spoon out of millet. So in India, the argument was that, you know, the cultural shift of eating lots of rice and growing lots of rice was reducing their amount of available water. And so to combat this guy had the idea, well, I'll grow millet, which requires less water, which will help the environment. And then from that millet, I'll make spoons and flavor them with different flavors. And then you can eat your spoon, which is very cool. And they're doing things like this with algae too, but the idea that it was very useful and it had a good lifespan until you wanted to eat it, well, that was great. But I haven't heard anything recently other than bad things about the company not following through on its promises. It's called Bakeys. Has anybody ever heard of this?
I have, but I've also just seen someone making plates, edible plates.
Yeah, so there's leaf plates, which are cool,
You eat off it,
and then you eat the plate. There's also leaf
I'm not sure I'm going
plates.
that far, but at least you know it can be.
Yeah,
It's going to break down.
right. If you can eat it, it can break down. It can biodegrade as opposed to photodegrade. So I'm kind of at a standstill with this one. If anybody has any more information on it, please let me know. But as far as I could tell, it looks like the company may not be in business anymore, which leaves an opportunity. They're still online, right? But if you look at their comments, there's some kind of nasty things in there. Which leads us to the next company, which is a company that I reached out to recently with the city. We're looking at trying to find ways to promote sustainable products. And this company, Eco Products, was somebody that I used in a previous job. But I did find something out. When we are looking at these sustainable products, again, the wish cycling effect kind of falls into our wish sustainable products effect, where we want to be able to recycle everything, and we want everything to be biodegradable, but not always the case. So sugarcane and bamboo, a lot of times, yeah, no problem. Wheat straw, but these compostable plastics, these PLAs or corn plastics, some of the cutlery and the things that you'll see up on the table, you're welcome to take a look at it when we're done, cups, to-go containers, these types of things. Some of them that are made from the PSM, and some of them are also made from recycled polystyrene, they don't have another life unless they have, well, actually should go to the next one. Unless they have a compostable facility, oh, hold on, no, I skipped the slide. Unless they have a compostable facility that is commercial composting. So think about our recycling center and what that does for us for recycling. You'd need a facility similar to that for composting specifically. We don't have one here locally. We would like to get one, so we're talking with other municipalities, Orlando, and we want to see, can we create enough drive to do things like this? Because that would give us a really great thing to be able to offer to businesses to say, look, we have a commercial composting facility, you can go to this product. It's very similar to what you're using. I mean, I think it'd be cool to eat off of eco-edible plates and leaves and things, but maybe not everybody wants to go there right away. They need an intermediary step of using some of these other materials, these PLAs, these corn plastics, but you have to have the right facility for them. So if you're buying these types of things and it says, you know, it's recyclable or it's compostable, make sure that if they have the recycling facility that we have one locally, or we have the composting facility that we have one locally, because if you don't have the right facility, it just ends up in a landfill and it becomes trash, which is unfortunate. So our hopes that everything should be compostable, the facts that we may not have that facility. So the future, we have to make sure that we create a future that's better than the day that we live in today. So we want to make sure that in the future you might have that facility at home, or you don't need that facility because you've done your 3 R's and you've reduced, reused, and you don't need to recycle. So the same applies to recycling. We hope that everything is recyclable, but that's not often the case. We wish that there was a facility available, but there might not be a demand for that facility with all of those different options available. And in the future, there may be that option. It may be in your home. You might have that compost facility that can compost those types of things, but for right now, what we have is our single stream, our green can and yellow lid, and if you have a composter at home, you can compost all kinds of things. You can compost eggshells, banana peels, apple cores, even your salad if you didn't finish it. So what is compost made out of? Everybody that tries to compost at home, you might not be 100% successful because you don't have the right ingredients. You need to have greens, yes, but you also need to have browns. People often just times put a bunch of greens in there and they don't add in the brown. You need to have the right microbial community for these things to break down so you can get that rich compost. You have to add a little water. You have to turn it. That's why the shovel's there. And you can always add worms too, because they're going to help the process along. Use biology to its greatest advantage. So I'll end with some little questions for us to think about together, which is, what kind of world do we live in? We live in a world full of options. There's different types of materials available. There's different types of recycling available. There's different habits we can get into by using recycled products, by reducing our footprint, by bringing that bag with us when we go to a restaurant and taking that reusable water bottle or cutlery or whatever with us, because that's the refuse option. And respectfully refuse, I don't want that styrofoam. I don't need that paper or that plastic. I brought my own bag with me to Publix. And that's hopefully how we can together, through the process of recycling, reducing and reusing, and help save the earth. Because what is the earth? The earth is a planet. And if you don't plant it, you don't have a planet. So plan it the next time you go out into the world, make a plan. I'm going to eat. I'm going to a restaurant. I will bring my bag. It will have all my goodies in it, so I don't need a to-go cup. I don't need to-go silverware. I don't need any of those things. If I'm going to go to a picnic in the park, I don't need the little plastic with the plastic inside of it, with the plastic inside of that, wrapped in paper. I brought with me my materials. So what are those materials you can bring with you? Your recycled water bottle, either made out of metal or recycled materials or biodegradable or BPA free, or in this case stainless steel, sometimes with really cool logos on it. And your containers. Now again, I would prefer something that wasn't plastic, but you can get all kinds of different containers that you can reuse. If you're reusing these for many, many years and you really get your use out of them, maybe it's worth it. But if you can get one that's the wax paper, even better, right? If you're going to drink out of a drink that requires a straw, okay, fine. Use a metal one. Use a glass one. Use a paper one. Or just don't use one at all.
Anybody has a really good idea how you clean the inside of them?
They come with brushes.
They come with brushes now.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
When
You
purchase
get nice little packs, and they're like, remember the little bendy straws, the pipe cleaners as kids you would use as arts and crafts?
that's acceptable.
That's acceptable. Good, good. It even cleans the bendy ones. Oh, and also in there is the glass. So Satellite Beach is, if you go to an event where we're going to give you water, typically, as long as I'm involved somehow, you'll be getting a glass, an actual physical glass. And when we did our sustainability summit in this very room, everybody got a glass, an actual glass of water. And it was really neat to see everyone's reaction when they picked up a glass and drank out of a glass instead of a plastic cup. And you bring your silverware. I got mine actually from an Earth Day event at Northrop Grumman, which was really kind of cool. Zach, you were there for this. And been using them. They're really great. You keep them clean. And you take them with you wherever you want. Add them to your collection. You can get them in different colors. You can bring a metal fork from your kitchen. You already have all these things at your disposal. And most likely you have a bag. Doesn't have the recycling symbol on it. Sometimes it might have the Surfrider logo because the city of Satellite Beach partnered with them and they gave you a bag for showing up to a workshop. Thank you all for coming to the workshop. You're more than welcome to take a recycled bag with you on your way out. Again, my name is Nick Sanzone, and I'd like to thank you all for coming out today. Our next workshop will be on lagoon landscaping. It will be part of our regularly scheduled sustainability board meeting. I'll be presenting inside of that meeting as part of a workshop to consolidate for time. Basically, the Lagoon Landscaping Pilot Program is something that's available to Satellite Beach residents to help the lagoon. If you'd like to know more about it, you can call me directly. My contact info is up there. If we have any questions, now's the time we get to do the Q&A. So we'll start over here.